Hey everybody, you're listening to episode 2 of the Work with Purpose podcast. This week, we're starting our first season all around the theme of essentials for the journey. So the core things that I think you need to know to start working with purpose. And today, we're going to talk about just that. What does it mean to work with purpose? Stick around. Hey everybody, welcome to our show. Today you're listening to the Work with Purpose podcast. I'm Randy Mahoney, and I am so glad that you're with us today. So if you're new to our program, a new episode, it goes live on the first Friday of each month during the times that we're doing our seasons. Also, you can be on the lookout for what we call our podcast update or our pod update episodes. Those are episodes of our show that give you a little bit more details about the podcast, like if we're going on to a break, when you can expect us to come back and things like that. As you're listening to our show today, I just want to invite you to subscribe wherever you're joining us so that you can stay updated for our future episodes, and also consider leaving a rating for us or a review on iTunes for our show. When you do that, it helps us connect our show to new listeners, and other people can find us and know about us too. So if you would do that, thanks in advance. Right now, this is our second episode of our first season. And as I was planning for what I wanted this season to be, I knew I wanted to bring you as a listener some of the core things that I thought you would need to know to get started doing what I like to call work with purpose. And so the theme for this first season is what I call essentials for the journey. And again, we're going to work to cover some of those core things that I think you need to know to work as your best self in the best possible way. And so today, as part of that theme, we're going to talk about something that I like to call working with purpose. And we're going to unpack, what does it mean to work with purpose? To give you a little bit of a background on this, the idea of, working with purpose or wanting to be somebody and wanting to help other people work with purpose, that first idea came back in early 2016 or 2017 when I made the decision to, really take a step of faith and really think about my life and my career more intentionally, and chose to start and develop my own career coaching business called Aeropath Coaching LLC. So made my own business here in the Midwest, and the desire, was to work with adults and help adults make wise career decisions by giving thoughtful support, teaching, and coaching and things like that. Really, from a time of introspection during that time and just prayer and things, from a time when my life was really kind of in a down spot, that's where this career coaching business started, and this whole idea of working with purpose started in my own life. So defining work with purpose, I would tell you that working with purpose involves 3 key things and then 2 options. So let's talk about those. So first, the 3 key things are: you start by understanding your values. Number 2, you start to know your strengths and work in them. The third thing is that you start to grow more aware of your personality. And then here are the 2 options. The first option is that you can do a diligent search for companies and roles and positions that would be a great match for all of those first 3 options. And then option number 2 is that you could choose to create your own role. It could be things like your own business or an entrepreneurial thing and stuff like that. Okay, so now that I gave you the short framework about what does it mean to work with purpose, let's take some time to start to talk through the first of our 3 key things. So here's the first key thing about working with purpose, and it is about understanding your values. And when we're talking about values, let's start with kind of a basic definition. So what are values? If somebody walks up to you off the street and they ask you, hey, what are some of your personal values or your professional values? Values are things that are deeply important to you just as a person, even independent of the job that you work or the position that you have. Your values show up in all of your life. And these are the things that are deeply important to you. Coming up later in the season, we'll have an episode that's sort of a deep dive on all these things related to values. But just for today, that's what you need to know. Your values are kind of these deep-seated, key, important things that are important to you as you consider a job, as you consider different aspects of your life. I'll give you a couple examples in my own life. In my current day job, I have the privilege of teaching career readiness skills to high school students with disabilities. I've been doing this kind of work professionally for nearly 3 years now. I'll say that this job has been a great fit, a great experience for me so far, and it's also been really in line with a lot of my personal values. My current role, it's helped me express the value of creativity. So in my role, I do a lot of teaching and kind of one-on-one settings with students and in small groups. So I have a chance to be creative and develop different lesson plans. In a previous summer last year, I had a chance to develop and implement and deliver an 8-week online summer course for students with disabilities who wanted to explore college as part of their life after high school. And that was a great chance for me to be creative and try some new lessons, new activities, and things like that. So that's an example of how my current day job, and even something thinking about for you, how your job or even other parts of your life can match up with your values. So to start this process of working with purpose, I would say the first step for you to really think about is to start to explore, examine, and really understand your personal values. All right, so now that we've talked about that one, let's move on to the second key thing that's part of working with purpose, and that's this. To work with purpose, you need to know your strengths and start to work in those. As we start to talk about this, I really kind of want to get on my soapbox and just tell you. So this is something I would say to you if you and I were sitting across from each other in a cup of coffee, and that's what this is. Whether you know it or not, you have strengths. You have gifts, you have talents, you have abilities, and they are unique to you, and the world out there needs you to express them. Your strengths are those natural abilities or those skills that you have. It's those things that seem like second nature to you, things that make you smile on the inside, things that give you energy. Strengths are the things that you lose track of time when you do them. Those things are going to be unique to you and unique to each different person. Strengths that you might have might not be the same as the strengths that I have or the strengths that somebody else has. It really starts with you taking an honest and objective look at yourself and trying to understand what are your strengths and how can you keep expressing those or work to express those more in your own life and ultimately in your professional life as well. So keeping on talking about strengths, I remember a video series that I watched a couple of years ago from a guy named Marcus Buckingham. He's a really pretty famous motivational speaker. He's written a lot on strengths. I know that in the past, he's worked for the Gallup organization. Gallup is a research organization. They do a lot of studies into strengths and workplace effectiveness and things like that. And years ago, he did a video series called Trombone Player Wanted. And I'll actually put a link for that video series in the show notes for you. And you can actually get our show notes at our website, wwpcast.com. That's wwpcast.com. It's in something that's called our application guide or our app guide. You're going to want to check that out because that is the go-to resource for every episode here on the Work with Purpose podcast. It's got timestamps that you can follow along so you can kind of scroll through sections. It's got application questions that we'll talk about in a little bit and kind of those detailed resources. So you definitely want to check that out. All right, kind of back to my point. In that video series Marcus Buckingham did called Trombone Player Wanted, he talked about a couple of different things when it comes to strengths. He talked about that as they continue to age and develop, people get stronger in areas where they're naturally strong. So it kind of goes back to the point of, on part of this journey of working with purpose, part of your journey, it's growing an awareness of what your strengths are, so kind of getting a common language to what your strengths are, but then also thinking about what are some ways in your own life, in your professional life, that you can begin to express your strengths more and really move to a place of moving from awareness to thinking of opportunities you can express your strengths to a point of being purposeful and intentional in displaying your top strengths, talents, and abilities. So far, as we talked about what it means to work with purpose, we've said it's 3 key things. We've talked with you about the first 2. So the first one we said was that working with purpose is all about you being aware of your personal values. And then number 2, we said that working with purpose is about you knowing your strengths and beginning to work into those. And then the third key thing that's part of working with purpose is this. To work with purpose, you need to grow more aware about your personality and how it can affect yourself and affect other people. I'm going to say that again. The third key part of working with purpose is you growing more aware about your personality and how it affects other people. Later in the season, we're going to have a whole episode that's a little bit more of a deep dive about personality traits and just some great resources to kind of bring some awareness about personality, and even some things that I've used in my own professional life that I highly recommend. The long and short of it is that your personality, it's not the same compared to somebody else. There might be some general tendencies. For example, somebody, if you're a little bit like me, you might get more energy and get recharged from time alone or time away from people. And on the opposite side, being around people might drain you, whereas somebody else in your life could be the exact opposite of you. It's important as part of your continuing growth and development and maturity and wanting to work as your best self in your best possible way. It's growing more and more aware of how do you function as a person. Things like, are you quick? Are you slow to make decisions? Where do you get your energy from? What kinds of activities recharge you? What kind of activities drain you? How do you naturally function within groups of people? Are you more of the take charge type person, or are you more kind of a follower type person to kind of hang back? All of those kinds of characteristics are important for you to know about yourself, because your personality and those characteristics, they're going to show themselves all across your life. They're going to show themselves in your friendships outside of the office. They're going to show themselves at home with your spouse, with your children. So those are important things to know, is that on this journey of working with purpose, it's important that you continue to grow more aware about your personality and how it affects other people and how it affects yourself, because we're kind of peeling back some of the inner workings of who you are and trying to help you work as your best self in your best possible way. All right, so now that we've talked about the 3 key things of what it means to work with purpose, I want to talk really quickly about the 2 options, or kind of the 2 ways forward after you've done the 3 big steps of what it means to work with purpose. And the first option is doing a diligent search for companies, roles, and positions that are a good match for your unique gifts, your unique strengths, and your unique personality. It's kind of like building a cake. After you've done the first 3 parts of kind of this work with purpose journey, then you can kind of put the icing on top, or put the candles on top of the cake, and you can start to apply everything that you've learned about yourself and start to do a search for companies and roles and positions that are going to be the best match and the best expression for your unique gifts and personality. Again, just like what I've shared with you earlier in this episode, later on in this season, I'm planning to do an episode that's all about that diligent search and doing a little bit more of a deep dive, but I just wanted to give you a 30,000-foot view of what that means here. So that's the first key thing, doing a diligent search for a company or a role that's a great expression of your unique gifts, your personality, and your values. And then the second option of what it means to work with purpose is that you could consider creating that unique role, that unique organization, or that unique opportunity. So you can get about the business of expressing your unique gifts and talents and your values in the world around you. With this option, this gets more into like the entrepreneurial side, more creativity, do your own business kind of thing. And this type of thing, I would say, is not for everyone. I would say that there are a lot more resources out there that are easy to use, that are low cost, that are available for people to use than in years past. That can be a great attractive thing for somebody who might not be finding a company or a role that's a really great expression of their gifts and their strengths. You can consider creating your own opportunity with the resources that are out there with the internet and mobile. But I want to say to you as well, the entrepreneurial side is not for everyone because it's a very ongoing lifestyle. There's not really an off switch for it. You have to be purposeful about what is important in your own life. As a business owner or an entrepreneur, it's something that if you're not careful, it can be very 24/7, 365, and your date nights with your spouse might turn into business meetings, or the new thing that you did with your company, or the new product you're working on, or the new resource you're trying to develop. You could choose to create your own opportunity, but I also want to tell you that built into that, it's not for every kind of person, not for every personality type, and that there are a lot of warning bells that I'm trying to explain to you right now to be careful and to be purposeful with it, because it's something you want to go in with your eyes wide open and understand the costs of an opportunity like that. All right, so far, we've talked about the 3 key things of working with purpose. We've talked about our 2 options, or two general ways to apply that expression of those 3 key things in your career journey. And now we're going to move to what I believe is my favorite part of our episode. Let's tackle some application questions. All right, so here are our application questions for this episode. Remember, all of these are in the application guide for this episode. You can get this at our website, wwpcast.com, and it'll be listed out there for you. So definitely take advantage of that. Let's go through some application questions for this episode. The first question that I want you to think about over these next few weeks between now and our next episode is this. I'd like you to think about how you would rate yourself on some of the different aspects of what it means to work with purpose. The first part that I want you to think about, I want you to rate yourself from 1 to 5, 1 being, not at all, and 5 being that you strongly agree with it, that you are expressing this all the time. The first thing I want you to rate yourself on is how much you agree with this statement. I understand my personal values, and they show themselves in most of the work I do each day. I want you to answer that question because that is a question that's getting you to think about how often are you expressing your values that are important to you each day in the work that you do. So I want you to rate yourself 1 to 5, 5 being that you strongly agree with it for that question, and 1 meaning that you don't think that's happening at all. The second question I want you to rate yourself on is this. I believe that I know my unique strengths, gifts, and talents, and I use them often in my current role or workplace. I believe that I know my unique strengths, gifts, and talents, and I use them often in my current role or workplace. So that question, kind of self-explanatory there. It's getting you to think about your unique gifts, your unique talents and strengths, and are those showing themselves mostly in your personal life or mostly in your work life, and how often are those happening? So here's the third statement I want you to rate yourself on from 1 to 5, and here it is. I'd say I'm confident about my personality. I'm self-aware. I know how I make decisions, get energy, and how I affect others because of my personality. I want you to rate yourself 1 to 5 on those questions over the next couple of weeks. So moving right along, here is the second application question. For the item that you were rating yourself on from 1 to 5, whichever item was the lowest, what are 1 to 2 ways you can keep growing in that as part of your journey to work with purpose? Maybe you take the next few weeks to research what are common examples of personal values and write out a list of ones that you agree with and why. So that way you're trying to apply and start to do some research on your own of what your personal values are. So that's number 2. Number 3, question I want you to work on and think about over the next few weeks is what skills, gifts, or strengths do you wish you could use more often in your current workplace? What skills, gifts, or strengths do you wish you could use more often in your current workplace? So question 4 is this. For those skills and gifts and strengths that you mentioned, do you see any opportunities that you could use those right now? For the skills and gifts that you mentioned, do you see any opportunities that you could use those right now? I like this question because it forces you to kind of get out of your own head and get past the emotions that a negative job or a less than best job can bring somebody. You kind of get lost in how you're feeling and like the boss that may not like you or the drama at work or whatever else. And it gets your eyes away from those potentially negative things and tries to get you thinking about what opportunities do you have in front of you that you might have forgotten about, or opportunities that are in front of you that you aren't paying attention to. Because chances are, I bet that there are opportunities that you can use your strengths and use your gifts in your current workplace, but you might have forgotten about them, or you just haven't noticed them in a long time. Wrapping up here, let's go to our 5th and last question I'd like for you to think about. Would you say that you agree with the mission, values, and culture of your current organization? Why or why not? This question is important because, again, we're trying to apply everything that I've taught you in this episode. You're trying to get really specific for your context, your current organization that you work for. Are you on board? Are you in line with their mission and their vision and their values and their culture? You're really facing yourself with this question, asking yourself, do I believe in this? Yes, no, and kind of all the degrees of that. All right, so that brings us to the end of our 2nd episode in our 1st season here on the Work with Purpose podcast. I hope you found it helpful. I hope it encouraged you and inspired you to start this journey to work as your best self in the best possible way by starting to work with purpose. Remember, you can catch our next episode on the first Friday of the month. So be looking for that coming up in January of 2021. So until then, I'm Randy Mahoney telling you that you've been made with purpose, so work with purpose. We'll see you soon. Hey, thanks so much for checking out the Work with Purpose podcast here on YouTube. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Click the subscribe button. Click on the bell icon so that you can stay in the know when we upload new videos and you don't miss a thing. Also, be sure to connect with us online at our website, wwpcast.com. It's kind of our home base for everything. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'm Randy Mahoney telling you to work with purpose. Thanks.